Think about it. We've all heard that classic advice. Listen to your heart. It's everywhere, right?
Absolutely. In songs, movies, pep talks.
But what does that actually mean? Is it just some, like, vague feeling, a hunch? Or could there be something, well, far more profound happening?
It's a question that really invites us to look beyond the obvious, and that's exactly where our deep dive takes us today.
Okay,
We're exploring teachings from Nirmala's book, Living from the Heart, and also dipping into some related insights from Nothing Personal.
got it. And these sources are essentially saying that the way most of us experience life, primarily from inside our heads, caught up in our
All
thoughts,
right.
that might just be one very limited perspective.
Exactly. They really open the door to sensing and knowing the world from entirely different places within ourselves.
Hmm.
And they suggest that doing so could unlock some, well, pretty significant shifts for you.
Okay, so our mission here is to unpack these ideas, explore what it feels like to sense from these other centers.
Precisely. And see what profound possibilities might emerge for you.
And along the way, we'll explore why trying to find lasting happiness by just, thinking about it, or even by constantly chasing external experiences, why that's fundamentally flawed.
Like trying to fill a bucket with a massive hole in the bottom.
Exactly. It just,
Yeah.
it never stays full, does it?
That leaky bucket analogy really cuts to the chase, doesn't it? It points to where we're often looking for fulfillment and maybe missing the mark.
Okay, so let's jump in. The core idea here, it starts with this vast, ancient wisdom pointing to the heart.
Right, and not the physical organ pumping blood.
No, this spiritual heart, as a true center, a source of peace, love, wisdom, truth.
It's described as the totality of your connection to your true nature, which these sources see as limitless being.
That's a critical distinction. It's not about the heartbeat.
No, it's about this deeper connection to fundamental reality. And the sources use a fascinating analogy here, comparing our awareness to baby ducks.
Baby ducks. Okay.
Yeah. Awareness has this incredible capacity to become imprinted or conditioned by experience. Like those ducks, our awareness tends to follow the first thing it sees, or maybe the most prominent things it sees.
And what are the most prominent things awareness sees from the moment we're born? Our physical body, obviously.
Right.
And incredibly quickly, our mind, our thoughts, our feelings, our desires.
So awareness starts flowing to the body and mind. It's like it follows them everywhere they go.
Out onto the meadow, into the creek.
Exactly. Which leads to what's called the colossal mistake.
Okay.
Because awareness is always with the body and mind, we mistakenly conclude, I am this body and mind.
We think that's us.
Yes. And according to these teachings, that mistake is the fundamental source of all human suffering.
Wow.
It's like identifying yourself as, I don't know, the fly that happens to land on your nose. You are making just as big a mistake, the sources say, in thinking you are the body and the mind.
Because the body and mind have problems, right? They get sick, they worry, they desire things they don't have.
Exactly. But your true nature, this vast, empty, spacious awareness, it can't actually be harmed. It doesn't have problems in the same way.
It's like setting off a bomb in outer space. When the dust settles, the space is still just space, untouched.
Perfectly put. And hand in hand with this mistake is the conditioning to look out from the head, from the thinking mind.
Right, that's our default viewpoint.
Thought is described as a small phenomenon. I mean, think about it. All your thoughts fit right there between your ears, essentially.
Huh, true.
But when awareness flows through thought, it constricts, it becomes narrow, and your sense of self shrinks down to match it. Awareness contracts onto a thought and takes on its size and shape.
In this narrow perspective, filtered through the lens of our thoughts, our judgments, our fears, our anxieties, it makes the content of those thoughts seem massive, overwhelming.
Yes. It's the mechanism for making a mountain out of a molehill.
We've all done that.
Absolutely. And we get so accustomed to seeing the world through this contracted filter that we just assume this is reality, this is how things are.
It's the dream, the conditioned reality we inhabit.
Created by looking out through that narrow window of the head and its thoughts. It colors, warps, and limits everything we perceive.
Okay, so if the default setting for most of us is looking out from the head, kind of stuck in that contracted sense of self, what's the alternative?
Well, the sources introduce the possibility of shifting that perspective, intentionally moving awareness away from being solely localized in the head.
Moving awareness. How?
Right, and they point to the heart again, the spiritual heart, as a primary potential center for sensing the world.
Interesting.
It is, isn't it? Historically, many cultures associated thinking or feeling not just with the brain, but also with the heart.
Fascinating. So how do we actually explore sensing from the heart? Is there a technique?
There's a simple, practical exercise. You start by just noticing what you're aware of right now, sounds, thoughts, your body.
Okay.
And notice, where does it feel like you are sensing this from? Most likely, it feels like it's coming from your head, somewhere behind your eyes, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Just notice what that's like.
Yeah.
Then the invitation is to gently allow your sense of sensing, the feeling of where awareness originates, to drop down into your heart, the center of your chest.
So you're not trying to feel your physical heartbeat necessarily.
No, not specifically. It's about allowing awareness to flow from that area, shifting the perceived source of your awareness.
Okay.
You can even rest a hand on your chest to help orient yourself there and just sense your surroundings, sense what's happening from this place in your heart.
And what's the typical effect of doing that? What do people notice?
Well, for many people, the experience is that awareness becomes softer, wider, more open, more expanded.
Hmm.
There's often a natural relaxation that happens. This is described as awareness returning to its natural state when it's not being forced into the narrow channel of thought.
Like a muscle relaxing when you stop holding it tense.
That's a great analogy. The head is like a tight focus, magnifying glass, maybe.
While the heart is more like a wide open aperture.
Exactly. Sensing from the heart includes so much more of what's present. It allows for a much richer, more satisfying experience. You can drink to your heart's content from this place, as the source puts it.
And if you notice yourself feeling contracted again, feeling separate.
That's a good sign that awareness has likely just shifted back up to the head without you realizing it. It's just a cue to gently redirect.
The sources also introduce another perspective, right? Sensing from the belly.
Yes, absolutely. This is another incredibly valuable perspective.
How is that different?
When you sense from the belly, the area generally, from the navel down to the pelvis, it can provide a profound sense of substantial grounded presence.
Grounded.
Yeah. It's described as being like a mountain of awareness. It's a place of deep stillness and solidity where you can rest and feel truly real, feel your fundamental existence.
That feels like such an important counterpoint to maybe the openness of the heart, a place to really land.
It is. And while the mechanism for shifting to the heart or belly is simple, just a gentle redirection of attention, really the sources are clear that it might not always be easy.
The classic simple but not easy because of the conditioning we talked about.
Exactly. Our culture, particularly in the West, has put such a huge emphasis on the intellectual mind. We value thinking above almost everything else.
True.
And we're also often conditioned to be wary of, or even dismissive of, things like physical sensations or emotions, which are often felt lower down in the body.
So there can be resistance.
Definitely. So when you drop awareness into the heart or belly, it can stir up those layers of conditioning, maybe discomfort, resistance, old feelings of lack or vulnerability that might be stored in those areas.
So if you feel discomfort when you try this, it's not a sign you're doing it wrong or that something is wrong with you. That's important.
Not at all. That's crucial. The sources emphasize this as just the imprint showing itself. It's the conditioning coming to the surface.
Yeah.
The invitation is simply to stay with the experience, whatever arises, and continue sensing it from even deeper within that heart or belly space. Allow it to be there. And, find support if you need it. It's always about starting right where you are.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's look at how these different perspectives, head, heart, belly, change our experience of everyday life stuff, like starting with thoughts.
Right. When we're stuck in the head, thoughts can feel so loud, so real, so overwhelming.
They really demand our attention, don't they?
They do. But the sources suggest an exercise. Observe your thoughts, just notice them, and then intentionally view them from the perspective of the heart or the belly.
Okay, shift the viewpoint.
Yeah. And what happens is that the distance changes everything. From that wider, deeper place, your thoughts tend to seem smaller, less solid, less important, less urgent.
You can see the patterns, maybe?
Exactly. You can see the patterns much more clearly.
Like a painter stepping back from the canvas. Up close, it's just overwhelming detail, but from a distance, you see the whole picture.
Perfect analogy. From that wider view, the awareness itself is inherently wise.
Yeah.
It naturally discriminates between what's truly important and what's just, mental chatter.
Okay. What about emotions? From the head, a strong emotion can feel like being trapped in an IMAX theater. Like it consumes your entire reality.
Right. It feels absolutely huge, all-encompassing. But dropping awareness into the heart allows space around the emotion.
Space around it.
Yeah. From that deeper place of being, the emotion still exists, it's still felt, but it feels less overwhelming, less significant somehow.
Hmm.
The sources use the analogy of jumping through a hoop of fire. If you stay on the surface, focused on the charged energy of the emotion itself, it's intense, it burns.
Right.
But if you drop through that surface energy into the spaciousness of the heart, there's often a profound softening and relaxation of the struggle with the emotion.
So it's not about suppressing the emotion or getting rid of it,
No, not at all.
but changing the context in which you experience it.
Exactly. And from the spaciousness of being, your true nature, which is described as the big enough container, even intense emotions can be experienced simply as part of the fullness of life without defining you or overwhelming you.
Okay. Desires are another one that can really grab us.
Oh, yeah.
From the mind's perspective, they can feel like the rushing water of a giant spillway, just pulling us relentlessly.
They have that compulsive quality, don't they? But experiencing desire from the heart or belly is described as being like standing in the center of the lake.
The center of the lake.
Yeah, where the current, the pull of the desire is much less powerful. You feel it, but it doesn't sweep you away. You have more choice, more freedom about whether or not to act on it.
And the belly perspective helps here, too.
Definitely. That solidity of the belly, that groundedness like a giant boulder, is particularly helpful when dealing with strong impulses or addictive patterns. It provides an anchor.
So again, the suffering with desires comes maybe less from the desire itself and more from the struggle in the mind about it.
That's the key insight, yes. Sensing from the heart or belly dissolves that mental struggle because you're no longer solely identified with the mental pull. You're resting in a deeper place where the desire has less power over your sense of self.
Okay. Relationships. That's such a huge and complex area, so influenced by our conditioning. How does shifting perspective apply there?
It's a really beautiful application, actually. The invitation is to allow awareness to flow from your heart and belly towards the relationship, towards the other person.
Instead of just from the head with all its judgments and expectations.
Exactly. This allows you to sense them and yourself much more freely without the heavy filter of your conditioned judgments, fears, or expectations getting in the way quite so much. You're responding more to what is actually happening between you in the moment.
And you mentioned the belly providing strength, like for boundaries if needed.
Yes, it offers that grounded firmness if the situation calls for it. It's not just about openness, it's about grounded presence too. And a wonderful discovery here, according to the sources, is that there's enough awareness. You don't have to choose. You can be fully present to the other person and simultaneously fully present to your own experience flowing from your heart and belly.
That's huge, because often we feel like we have to sacrifice one for the other.
Right. The sources note that we often abandon ourselves in relationships, even when we're trying to be loving or supportive, by focusing solely on the other person and neglecting our own presence, our own grounding.
This allows for a fuller flow of connection and intimacy, as they say.
That's the idea, because both people are more fully present.
That resonates deeply. Okay, what about the body itself, and specifically physical pain? That feels very real, very immediate. How does this apply?
It does feel very real. But the sources suggest that the suffering from physical pain isn't inherent in the sensation itself. Much of it comes from the judgments, the resistance, the struggle about the pain.
The story we tell ourselves about it.
Exactly. All filtered through the mind's beliefs and fears about what the pain means, how long it will last, what it will prevent us from doing. They even point to research like Dr. John Sarno's work, which highlights how anxiety and fear about pain can actually increase the physical sensation.
So the mind's reaction is actually amplifying the suffering, potentially even the sensation.
Potentially, yes. So the practice suggested is to try and interrupt that cycle, give space to the raw sensation itself.
Yeah.
Drop into the heart or belly and experience the pure sensation as directly as possible, separate from the thoughts about it.
Just the raw data, so to speak.
Kind of. And from that perspective, pain is often experienced not as a solid, fixed problem, but as an ever-changing series of sensations. It might still be intense, but its nature feels different.
This doesn't mean you ignore it or don't seek medical help.
Absolutely not. It doesn't negate caring for the body at all, but it radically changes the experience of suffering associated with the pain.
Okay. And then facing something like death and loss. I mean, that feels like the ultimate challenge to our sense of self and security.
Absolutely. The ultimate impermanence. The sources present these incredibly difficult moments as profound opportunities to explore our deepest fears and conditioning, but again, from the perspective of the heart's spaciousness.
Facing them from being rather than just the contracted self.
Yes. Facing the possibility of death or loss from the open, spacious dimensions of being makes them seem, well, less formidable, less terrifying.
And the gift in this.
The profound discovery, the sources say, is the recognition that your true nature, as limitless eternal space, as being itself, cannot actually be harmed or destroyed by these events. This awareness can be an incredibly powerful anchor when facing impermanence.
Wow. It really sounds like this isn't just a mental exercise or a slight shift. Shifting perspective to the heart and belly fundamentally changes the whole texture, the experience of being alive.
That's a great way to put it. The sources suggest that where you experience life from is actually more significant, ultimately, than what you happen to be experiencing.
That's a powerful reorientation, isn't it?
It really is. And this aware space, this heart space, isn't just empty or neutral. The sources describe it as containing everything that really matters. Qualities like love, peace, wisdom, joy.
So joy and happiness aren't things you chase outside.
No, they're seen as natural qualities of this open, aware space itself. They arise from within.
And the heart itself has its own kind of innate wisdom, like an inner teacher.
It does. That's a key part of the teaching. The heart is described as constantly, instantly, and accurately showing you how true or complete your current perspective is, simply by its response.
How does it show you?
By its opening or contracting. A smaller truth, a limited perspective, like getting lost in a judgment or identifying solely with a thought, naturally contracts the heart space. A larger, more complete perspective opens it.
And this isn't something you have to figure out or do perfectly.
No, that's the beauty of it. The heart is always doing this, whether you're aware of it or not. It's like a built-in compass.
Always pointing towards more truth, more wholeness. And truth here isn't some abstract dogma.
No, it's simply what exists, with different degrees of completeness or inclusiveness. Our experience of truth is always partial, always limited from the mind's perspective, and the heart reflects that limitation or openness.
The sources also talk about a judgment cycle, right?
Yes, how the mind tries to avoid discomfort by contracting awareness, by judging something as bad or wrong.
Which only creates more discomfort.
Exactly, leading to further contraction. It's a learned pattern, a vicious cycle. And often, the sources suggest, it's only through the sheer exhaustion of this struggle, hitting a kind of bottom with it, that release and spontaneous opening happen.
That helps explain why profound insights or awakenings can sometimes follow periods of really intense suffering.
It does. The system gets exhausted with fighting reality.
So, simply noticing how a thought or an idea affects your sense of self. Does your heart feel more open or more contracted right now? That's a direct way to understand its relative truth or importance for you in this moment.
It's an incredibly effective way to discern the significant thoughts, the ones pointing towards greater wholeness, from the endless flow of insignificant ones, the small truths that keep us contracted.
And pulling back even further, the sources introduce this really profound idea that ultimately there is only love.
Yes. That can sound challenging initially.
Only love? I mean, what about actions that seem clearly harmful or hateful? How does that fit?
It's a subtle teaching. It suggests that everything you or anyone else has ever done is ultimately the movement of being taking care of itself.
Taking care of itself.
Yeah. But when the sense of self is contracted and small, identified only with the body and mind, it takes care of that small me, often in very narrow, defended, or even harmful ways from a larger perspective. Seeing this universal loving nature, this fundamental impulse of being, to care for itself in some way, doesn't mean condoning harmful acts, of course, that's crucial.
Right.
But it shifts your perspective. It allows for a response that doesn't necessarily just perpetuate the conflict, the separation. It reveals the potential for transformation because the fundamental energy is seen as love, however distorted it might appear.
And actions become more loving, naturally, as the sense of self expands.
Exactly. As your sense of self expands to include others, to include the whole, the way being takes care of itself naturally becomes more inclusive, more aligned with that oneness.
This connects powerfully to another really key concept they discuss. Love is forgiving, not forgetting.
This is a major pivot point in the teaching, a radical shift for most of us.
Because we usually think of love as something we need to get from others.
Right. We spend our lives seeking it, trying to earn it, feeling lack when we don't receive it. But the sources argue that the love we're truly seeking isn't something outside of us at all.
What is it then?
It is the spacious, open attention of our own awareness flowing from within us. This flowing awareness is love. That's the core statement.
Wow.
and experiencing this flow outward from you to the world to others to experiences that is the most deeply satisfying thing you can possibly feel. You are filled with love as you are giving awareness, giving love.
So the feeling of love comes from the giving, not the receiving.
That's the assertion. There's an exercise related to this, right?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Simply giving simple awareness and love to like a physical object.
Yeah.
Or a sound.
Exactly. Just pick something neutral and consciously offer it your open, accepting awareness, offer it love, and just notice what happens inside you as you do that.
What typically happens?
It seems counterintuitive, but often you find that your own heart feels fuller, warmer, more open as you give this attention, this love.
And you can't run out of it.
That's the claim. This awareness, this love, is described as a limitless supply right there within you because it is your fundamental nature.
This is the complete opposite of the leaky bucket we talked about at the start.
Exactly. The leaky bucket is trying to fill the inner emptiness by consuming external experiences through the senses, trying to get satisfaction from the outside.
And that kind of satisfaction is always fleeting.
Because it's based on trying to get from the outside to fill an inner space. That inherent emptiness, that space of being, just dissolves whatever you try to put into it in that way. It creates compulsion, addiction, always needing the next hit.
So the alternative, the fulfilling way, is to let awareness and love flow outward through the senses to whatever is present.
Yes, you can practice this by simply offering love, offering open awareness to physical sensations in your own body, even uncomfortable ones. Just allow them, be present with them lovingly.
And then extend it.
Yeah, extend it to subtle experiences like thoughts, emotions, desires. Offer them living awareness. Then maybe to existence itself, just the fact of being here.
Wow.
And the sources even suggest extending it to all time. Loving the past, loving the present, loving the future, holding all of it in this loving awareness.
What is the effect of loving whatever is present like that?
Yeah. It's described as revealing the inner beauty and inherent perfection that's already there in everything, regardless of how it appears externally or what your personal judgments about it might be.
Even in things we find difficult.
Yes. You can love your own body, your personality with all its quirks. You can love empty space. You can even love time itself and discover this underlying beauty and fullness. The recognition that love is your essence brings this ultimate sense of being full, knowing it's always here, always available, even if you're not consciously experiencing it intensely in every single moment.
Because every moment, at its core, involves a flow of this awareness, this love.
That's the underlying reality pointed to.
It sounds like the whole path described here is about shifting from trying to understand and control life with the thinking mind,
Which is our usual strategy.
to simply being present and experiencing it from this deeper place of heart and belly, trusting that.
That's a great summary. And it brings us directly to the limitations of the mind as our primary guide. The sources view thoughts as inherently unreliable, ultimately.
Unreliable, why?
Well, they're based on memory, which is faulty, or fantasy, which isn't real. They're constantly changing. And crucially, they can never truly grasp the present moment.
Because by the time you think about the present,
It's already past. Thought is always one step removed from the living reality.
and the I, or me, we identify with, the one who feels like it's doing all the thinking and planning and worrying.
Yeah, that sense of a continuous me. It's described in these teachings as just a story, a collection of ever-changing thoughts about I.
Just a story.
Yeah, it doesn't have a consistent reality or substance underneath it. Awareness is present even in the moments when the you story isn't actively running when you're absorbed in something or deeply asleep. There are significant gaps in that sense of me.
So if the I is just a story, what is actually seeing these words, hearing my voice, feeling the body sitting here?
That's what's referred to as the mystery. Something bigger, something prior to the me thought. Awareness is seen as a fundamental quality of this mystery. It's a humbling realization, really, that watching is happening, listening is happening, independent of a personal me that can claim ownership or credit.
And this leads to a different kind of knowing, too, doesn't it? Beyond the mind's knowing.
Yes, exactly. The mind's knowing is based on the past memory, concepts, understanding, analysis. And that's often useless or even counterproductive for the absolute immediacy of the present moment.
So what's the alternative knowing?
True. Alive knowing comes from simply being present now. It's ordinary in a way, like your body knowing how to breathe or your cells knowing how to replicate without your conscious input, but it's also profoundly intelligent.
And this deeper knowing, it doesn't necessarily discard past knowledge entirely.
No, not at all. It uses it when appropriate, but it prioritizes the truth, the reality of this moment over concepts about the moment.
And trusting this deeper knowing often feels like not knowing to the mind, doesn't it? Because the mind wants a plan.
It absolutely does. Because this deeper knowing arises with the moment spontaneously. It doesn't come from figuring things out in advance.
So trust involves paying attention to what is actually happening.
Rather than relying on your ideas about what should be happening or trying to mentally figure things out using past knowledge or future projections.
But the good news is this innate wisdom, this deeper knowing, is always functioning perfectly, even when the mind doesn't trust it or tries to interfere.
That's the freedom in it. Suffering arises primarily from clinging to our ideas, our mental maps about how things should be. Surrendering to this innate wisdom, this intelligence of the present moment, brings freedom from that specific kind of suffering caused by mental resistance.
So if the mind can't figure it out, how do you know what to do in a practical sense? That's the question people always ask.
It's the big question. The source suggests that as your interest in thoughts lessens, as you stop automatically prioritizing the mind's input, knowing appears mysteriously from beyond the thinking process. It arises from presence.
How do you test that?
By simply being present without an agenda, without trying to figure out the answer beforehand. Just rest in awareness. It can feel initially like stepping off a cliff into the unknown present.
A bit scary for the mind.
For sure. But it reveals itself to be incredibly alive and responsive. The knowing comes when it's needed.
So it sounds like thoughts and feelings viewed from this deeper place aren't necessarily reliable guides because they aren't the whole truth. They're just part of the picture.
That's right. They're seen as potentially pathological liars, not intentionally malicious, but fundamentally misleading because they only present a partial, filtered, often distorted version of reality.
And the mind really struggles with not understanding, doesn't it? It wants certainty.
Desperately. Trying to use understanding, mental knowing, as a formula for life inevitably fails because, again, it's never the whole picture. It's always based on the past.
Like in addiction, the sources say. Seeking understanding can just lead to more struggle.
More suffering until you potentially hit bottom with that approach. Realize it just doesn't work to try and figure everything out.
So when you finally admit, genuinely, I don't know,
That's often when real attention begins. You stop trying to mentally grasp and control, and you start actually paying attention to what is. You rest in a compassionate presence that simply allows everything to be as it is and remains curious about it.
but the mind can't help but ask, why?
Hmm.
Why is the mystery doing all this? Why is there suffering? Why is there form?
It's such a natural question. But the sources caution that giving an intellectual answer, even one that sounds profound, might provide a temporary feeling of vastness or relief, but it encourages clinging to that understanding.
So the answer isn't the point.
Not really. The invitation isn't to find an answer to why, but maybe to go deeper into the feeling that the question evokes. Go into the feeling of vastness itself. Find its source within you. Get curious. What is present when you feel spacious and when you feel contracted? When you feel like you understand and when you feel utterly confused? Isn't it the same awareness underneath? It just sometimes feels clogged by ideas about being clogged or confused.
Is there truly less awareness then, or just the idea of being limited?
That's the inquiry. Awareness is even present in apparent blankness or deep confusion. It's the space in which the confusion appears.
The mystery is described as being like a trickster sometimes, playing with form.
It is, constantly manifesting in countless unpredictable ways. And the ultimate joke, in a way, is on the you, the sense of a separate self that thinks it's separate from all of this play.
Because there's no actual boundary between the I and the mystery and awareness itself.
That's the realization. The spiritual path, viewed in this light, isn't about getting final answers, but maybe about having a blast with the questions, living the questions. The mystery remains mysterious. The mind simply cannot grasp it. It's about being willing to simply be the mystery, rather than understand it.
So is understanding that we don't understand the true understandings? Is that the paradox?
In the mind's framework, perhaps that's as close as it gets. But knowing in the mind's sense is always about the past, about collected concepts. Not knowing that open presence is where life, where the mystery is actually happening, unfolding right now.
So the invitation is to rest here.
Yes. To get truly familiar and comfortable with the feeling of, I don't know, it's described not as a lack, but as something incredibly restful, incredibly rich, open to possibility.
And finally, what about this apparent paradox of oneness and manyness. We clearly see differences everywhere we look. How does that square with oneness?
Differences are obvious, aren't they? That's what the senses report. Oneness is much less obvious to the ordinary mind.
Right.
But the sources suggest the paradox dissolves when you realize that differences don't necessarily equal separateness.
Like your fingers on your hand.
Exactly. Clearly different fingers, but are they separate from the hand? No. The mind's job is to see differences, to categorize and analyze. It's very good at it. That's its function.
But the heart...
The heart's nature, its function, is to recognize oneness. The heart is the oneness, as one passage puts it.
So the mind sees the many, and the heart recognizes the one. And there's no fundamental contradiction between those perspectives.
Exactly. Separation is simply a thought, a concept arising in awareness, in the oneness. Everything is an appearance of the mystery, like waves appearing on the surface of the ocean. They look different, but they're all water.
And looking with the heart reveals that underlying oneness.
That's the potential. The sources bring us back here repeatedly. The mind, our feelings, our desires, they are ultimately unreliable guides if taken as the whole truth. Look deeper, look to the heart, not just the physical organ, but that vulnerable, open place of deeper, spontaneous knowing that exists prior to the mind's frantic attempts to grasp, control, and understand.
Wow, okay. This has truly been a deep dive, hasn't it? Moving from being identified solely with our thoughts and that contracted sense of self we often feel in the head.
Right, that default mode.
To exploring the expansive freedom of sensing life from the heart and the grounded solidity we can find in the belly.
We've touched on how suffering often originates not from our experiences themselves, but really from our internal resistance and judgments about them.
And how shifting perspective offers a path to dissolving that suffering.
And we've explored that really revolutionary idea that love isn't some scarce resource we need to chase and get from others.
But is our own essence a limitless supply that flows outwards when we simply give our open awareness, which is just incredible to contemplate.
It is. And we've really examined the limitations of relying solely on the thinking mind as our guide, acknowledging that the I we take ourselves to be is essentially just a story, a collection of thoughts.
And pointing towards the profound wisdom available in simply being present, in trusting not knowing, and in recognizing the mystery that is always already here, doing the watching, hearing and feeling.
It's an ongoing invitation, really, for all of us, in any given moment, just noticing. Where does it feel like you are experiencing your life from right now?
Is it the narrow, often critical, filtered lens of the thinking mind up in the head?
Or are you perhaps sensing from the wider, softer, more open perspective of the heart?
Or maybe from that grounded, solid, deeply present place in the belly, just noticing the difference.
Exactly, just noticing.
So, as you go about your day, here's a final provocative thought for you to consider. If your heart is genuinely and constantly showing you, through its subtle opening and closing, how true or complete your current perspective is, what does that mean about trusting your own inner experience exactly as it is in this very moment? What might you discover about yourself, about others, about the world, if you simply started paying closer attention to that subtle, constant guidance flowing from within your own heart?